Hi, Christie.
Hey, Cathi.
How's it going?
It's going good. It's almost 2024 in a couple days. And, every year at this time, I start to think I need to be planning things and, improving my time management. And, of course, I thought, who better than you to help me and any of our listeners equally challenged to be better at this. And I know that you just love it. So
I do love it. It's literally one of my passions is trying to find better ways to do the things I want to do in a more efficient way. So does that sound so pathetic?
No, I mean, there are people that make you should write a book on it.
I would love to, actually. It's kind of a bucket list thing. Because I really love reading all about this. I always love reading everyone else's ideas and, learning what you can. So I'd love to talk about it. But first, cheers to you.
Cheers. Cheers.
Almost Happy New Year.
So you've got like a festive glass that has like sparkles for the new year.
Cute? Yeah.
And I have my New York City glass, so I can pretend like I'm in Times Square in a couple days.
Or not. Not my thing.
No.
But it's clearly millions of other people's things, so there you go.
No, I just can't even imagine because, one, it would be claustrophobic, and two, where do you go to the bathroom? I was
just going to say, that's exactly the bathroom thing.
Yeah. And that's how it's always been in my mind, that I've always been like, no, never, not unless you got me on some kind of suite overlooking the crowd.
Yeah. And I honestly, if I was going to spend that kind of money, I'd probably spend it a different way. I'm not that much of a crowd person. I get it must be very exciting, but good for them.
Maybe they'll have us, maybe one day we'll be announcers for it.
You think?
What do you think?
No, because I'd be in bed. I'm not going to be able to stay up.
I would make you stay up for that.
That's probably true. You would.
Yeah.
All right. So, when you asked to talk about this, I try to think about just kind of break down, because I could go on about this for hours, and we don't want to do that because that'd be ridiculous. But I will say, I have 3 tips, the 3 things that I think work best for me. And the first one is to do what works for you naturally. There's always new ideas about list making or scheduling or, how to prioritize things. Mornings, like the whole morning routine. But if it's not your jam, why work that hard? There's so many different ways to organize your time. And so I really feel like try things on. And if it doesn't innately work for you, find something else that will. Because I don't like the prescriptive, everyone should be doing this. They should have this morning routine. I think that's too hard, and you're setting yourself up for disappointment and another failure. So identify, I think, what your natural instincts are. Yeah,
that's definitely true, because I think that's why so many people do not continue whatever plan or planner or whatever. It's not intuitive to them, so they don't.
And there's plenty of ways to do it. So, so much so that I buy planners
So how many planners do you have for this year?
I am not going to tell you. I have 9 that I will use regularly.
Wow.
I know, but it's just my system. I've gotten a system, but one of those planners I self-create. I literally go and I get it printed professionally and off of something that I created because I couldn't find what I wanted anywhere else.
Okay, so we're definitely going to publish that. Remember, we talked about it. We should do that.
Yeah, no,
that'll be our thing for 2024.
There you go.
Like our Read Happy journal.
So that would be my number 1 tip: is just try all the things out or read about all the things, but then only do what works for you. If I have read,
But what if nothing works for you? I mean, is there a place to start?
For sure. I mean, there's a litany of books. I'll tell you what my number 2 tip is where I would start. If I didn't have any system, time blocking. I believe so thoroughly in time blocking.
I remember you mentioned that on an episode, and I'd love to hear more about that because...
So time blocking is, the reason I love it is you can make it work in whatever capacity you want, but it is so it's so individualized, but you look at what day you have, what time you have. I do this at the beginning of every week. I look at what my schedule is. Like, what are the non-negotiables? Meetings with you, podcasts.
Of course, I'm number 1 on the list.
Always number 1. and then I find those. And then I look at what the rest of my schedule is, and then I look at what I want to accomplish, what my priorities are, and I create time blocks. So I'll say, for me, I have a kind of a set routine in the morning, as you know. So my time block from 4 to 6 is my writing time. 6 to 7 is my exercise time. And then I fit in the rest of the day. I fit in my work life time blocks, my podcast time blocks, my
So do you
projects.
usually when you say a time block, you say like a 1 hour or 2 hour increments, and I mean, and then you just
because
do you set a timer when you're doing it, or do you just look at the clock all the time?
I do. I mean, because if I want to I'll make a list of all the things I want to get done. What are the things I need to accomplish this week? Need to, want to, have to. And there's priorities within each of those, and I have to find a way to get that accomplished. And so I use these time blocks, and I keep them out of my desk all day long, because if I get behind, something else is gonna have to get moved or dropped. And so I really try to stick to it. But I edit as I go. So that's my 3rd tip, is that I end the day every day editing my calendar for the next day, because undoubtedly new things come up, right?
Absolutely.
100 all the time, and so things have to fall off the schedule or the calendar from what comes up sometimes, or you have to find a place. And so I just, at the end of each day, I regroup and take a look at what the plan is. So after you and I are done here, I will revisit today. What did I get accomplished? What time blocks were crunched, and maybe I need to find more time.
How long does that take you?
Well, I suppose it would take me 20 minutes if I wasn't. I enjoy it. I will pour a glass of wine, I make a ritual out of it, or I'll have a cup of tea, and I kind of enjoy that time. So I usually spread it out to about 35 minutes. I just really like ending my day that way. But one of the things before we were talking about...
Because you're not sitting there watching TV like me. Oh.
I do not turn the TV on very much, but I listen to music all the time. But But I used to want to. I have a journal, and many journals. But one of them is I really wanted to get in the habit of doing gratitude journaling at the end of the day.
Right.
I really wanted to do that. I thought, what a great way to end the day. I am so tired and so worthless at the end of the day that I never followed through. And all it did was make me feel bad about myself.
Right.
And I think that was one of those. Now, if I do my morning journaling, 100% I can get that done.
Right.
So I think that's knowing yourself. We're like, I'm never going to be a night working person. I'm just not.
Right.
Like, I just can't do it.
And you don't have to do everything either, just because you are, you can feel busy every minute of your day. Maybe, somebody else might say, okay, I only need 3 blocks.
Oh, for sure.
And then, I have the flexibility around it if that's, but I think that's a really good plan, Cathi. I think that's really good.
But I will tell this, Christie, I think you make the time blocks that you need for your life. So I put in a buffer of an hour every single day, because I know in general things are going to come up that I do need to address.
Right.
And so I put in a buffer time block every single day, knowing that I'm going to have to catch up some things, or new things will come.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you something that is probably, not on the agenda for this episode, but I'm wondering something about checking your emails, your text, your whatever, because I find like that can be something that can be a real time suck. But at the same time, there are situations in both of our lives where we do have to be able to be contacted. And so how do you handle it? Do you have like certain like, okay, on, if there's no problem, I'm not going to do, do you turn the ringer off ever? And I do
100%.
notice that sometimes this
I do.
year and I think in years past it would be like, oh yeah, respond. And then now it would be like, she hasn't responded. I'm thinking it's not her time to respond because otherwise it was an easy response. It wasn't like something that, you had to think too hard about. Yeah. But,
so I at my work, we communicate with email. That's really how we communicate. And in my other life with you and my family, we communicate on text. And I have this terrible, urge to have all of my messages clean and organized because I try, and it really stresses me out watching my inbox just grow during the day. I used to try to keep on it all the time, but I found that it was incredibly distracting and I wasn't doing high quality work for a chunk of time. So now I do schedule email catch-ups twice a day. In general, I leave my text messages on all the time. But I do try to only look at my email at designated times of the day because otherwise it's just it's a time suck. And
no, I think that's a really good thing, especially and also like social media when we had to do that. We haven't been doing it this year, but Christie, but if we get started on it, it's the same thing. You have to have like a set time of the day because otherwise, it gets distracting. You bing, ding. Oh, somebody said this. I should respond. And
there's like a weird satisfaction, right? Like a dopamine hit when I respond to an email or respond to a text or respond to social media. It's like I got something off my list and I feel like short-term gratification, but it isn't helping me in general get the big things done I need to get done.
Right.
It's just, and so the social media thing is interesting. I miss engaging with our followers as like I used to.
Yeah, me too. But I keep thinking about it, but it's just I haven't had the time.
There's just something has to fall away, and I outsourced. Well, I write the content for my business, my other work life. I write the content, but I have a marketing manager that posts it and puts it together and follows. And that has just given me a huge amount of space in my life. Yeah. And I kind of don't miss, I don't miss the time suck that is. I really can spend a lot of time on social media, which is not a good thing to say, but I can.
Yeah, no, I think anybody can. I think that's the problem, Even I used to think it was just kids, but I mean, we had my Friendsgiving and we're all on vacation. And there were times where I looked around, everybody's on their phone. Sometimes like watching something on their phone while the TV's going on, it's just like so much information, but it's just a habit, it's like, okay, I got a minute, pick it up. And especially on vacation, because that's the time when you don't have like those chunks of time that you have to do stuff all the time. So it's a really addictive type thing. Yeah.
I love this conversation. I do. So I appreciate you wanting to do this because life is so fleeting and there's so much that we all want to do. And I just, what's the phrase that, the days are fast or the days are short, but the years are fast? Or is it meaning that, you can just fly through your days and all of a sudden a year's gone by. And did you get accomplished what you wanted to get accomplished? And I will be the first one to say that I haven't in these last few years. I want to fit in writing into my life. And I have done a real shitty job of it, frankly, and it really takes me off.
Yeah, and I know you're very hard on yourself because you have to give yourself some grace because there are so many things that go on in our life, and there's always a time for everything, and sometimes that time for, like you said, the writing or stuff is just not there.
There's a season for everything. I'm not
Yeah.
very good at accepting that.
I know. And I know, but I think it's a normal thing for us to beat ourselves up about things. And I do have like a lot of things that I wish I could do. And then when it actually comes down to it, I don't always get it done. And then I beat myself up about that. So
Yeah, the thing is, the conversation we had today is really about planning, and man, can I plan. But really, the deal is in the follow-through. The deal is in the execution. It really is. And I will say I can't follow through and execute if I don't have a plan.
Right.
But that follow-through and that execution, that's why I've had to make adjustments to my plan this year. Like things like, you're not checking your email until 11:45. Like, you're just not. That's not how this is going to work.
Yep.
I don't know.
And I do believe that you're like, I mean, I think the base is planning. So if I have a day planned and I have it blacked out, because I do that occasionally, I do it, and I'll have okay, from 8 to 9 is this and this.
Right.
I feel like then I get way more accomplished than if I didn't have that plan, because a lot of the time is spent going, oh, I was going to do, this, and then something else comes up, and then three things, and you're like, I got to get them all done, but which one do I do? But when you have it planned out, oh, later at 3:00, I'm going to do that. So I don't need to think about it right now,
I love that. And I remember you and I had a conversation with Phillippe Ryan years ago. And I remember we were asking her, how do you get it all done? I mean, because she really is a very busy woman. She's everywhere all the time and publishing regularly and all the things. And she just said, I know what things I don't have to think about. And I just loved that answer. She was like, I have a clear calendar, and when I take on a new project, I schedule how I'm going to implement those things. And then I don't have to think about it because I know it's already written down. And I thought, oh, that's brilliant. So it's not just hanging there, worrying about it. So that is the beauty of planning. So you can create some space for the things you're working on right now. And, the other thing about planning, I think, every day is that there are 300,000 things we all can do or have to do or want to do. But when you sit down and plan, for me, it's the end of the day before. I know what I have to prioritize the next day at least. Because, man, things can creep in and get... Like, the things that aren't really priorities can feel like they're emergencies. And, and they're really not. And maybe sometimes it's because it's easier. And then I get a dopamine hit because I've done that thing, but it really doesn't help me. The hard thing is usually generally the best thing to do first. But we don't do that. Sorry.
But 2024, we will do that for sure. No, I mean, we could talk for a long time. Okay.
Yeah, this is one of my favorite topics because I want to do better.
Did you block enough time to keep talking about this?
You have 11 minutes left. But I do. But it is kind of alienating because I do walk around. So in addition to time blocking, I break my day down into 20-minute increments from 4 a.m. to 9 p.m. And this is really tragic. It's embarrassing, but it works for me. But I walk around with this list. And the sad thing is, though, I will feel myself starting to get my attention drawn because I'm like, I'm behind schedule, and I'm scheduled to the 20-minute. That's not a very fun thing for the other person to hear, but it makes me feel good.
Because that's what cute. I was thinking when you said about what Hank said, that helps you live in the moment. But when you're too worried about what's going to happen in the future, then you're not living in the moment either. So that's interesting. Yeah,
it is interesting. It's always a push-pull. But it's a great conversation, and at the very. But one thing I always, I want to. Speaking of giving each other grace or giving ourselves grace, I do want to not think I need to do totally better this next year, because you know what, I think we're all doing the best we can at any given moment, and so things you can tweak, great, but we don't need to completely reinvent our lives.
So what do you say, like maybe later in January we revisit this conversation and see what we're doing?
I'd love to.
Because there's a lot more to do, talk about, and maybe, you can turn me on to some of the planners or something. Yeah,
well, because the other thing I would love to talk to you about is the 12-week year.
Oh, yes.
I'm obsessed with that.
Should we talk about it now, or do you want to wait?
It's up to you.
Look, I don't have the block set up.
I
don't have anything in 11 minutes, and I'm an hour ahead of you, so.
Yeah, right, so I can pretend. So the 12-week year, the concept is that you plan you plan 12 weeks as if it's a year, because their concept behind the gentleman who created this plan.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, I know. It's coming back to me a little bit.
Remember, because most people, right, you start the new year and you're like, I'm going to do these things this year. But you have 12 months, and then we all let it go, right? You and I have talked how many years, February, March, like, oh, I've already let it go. And then this time of year, everyone starts trying to kick it in, right? And so the concept of the 12-week year is that you really condense that immediacy and try to get smaller chunks accomplished within this 12-week year concept. And it's very interesting, and it's all about planning, of course, but measuring, scoring, and execution. And it is.
So when you say measuring and scoring, so you take you do something during that 12 weeks and then apply it the next 12 weeks or something?
Yeah, so basically you say, here's 1 or 2 projects I want to complete in the next 12 weeks. And then you break down the steps, so that would be your goals, right? And then you break down the steps to what you're going to, write down every single thing you're going to have to do to accomplish those, whatever it happens to be. I want to lose 5 pounds, or I want to, run a 5K, or I want to finish my novel, or whatever it happens to be. And so you set your goals, 1 or 2, right? Maybe 3 if you're
ambitious.
For punishment. Yeah. And then you write down every single task that you're going to have to do to accomplish that.
There we go.
What'd you say?
I said, that's too bright. And then I was like, there we go. I had my computer screen on. I was like, man, it's blaring me in my face. Okay.
Yeah. So after you write down every single step, and then you put it into the calendar over the next 12 weeks. And so if writing or editing your novel, you are going to have to break down all those steps. Like, how are you going to plan on editing or revising your novel? And you put it into your calendar. So that's the plan, right? That's the nitty gritty. And then you have to measure what you're doing and score it. So measuring is at the end of the week, you look back at your previous 7 days and you're like, here were the tasks I needed to do this week to get this 12-week accomplishment made. And of the 7 days, how many of those tasks did you, so if there's 3 tasks a day and you had 7 days, that's 21. So how many out of 21 did you accomplish? It's just a kind of a simple scoring system. Mm-hmm. And then you just jot that down, and then you kind of that's your measuring, and then accountability is part of it, which I'm terrible about because I like to keep things to myself. Yeah. And then, but then the execution is, the concept is that you will execute better if you measure and you have an accountability partner, because,
Well, I tell you, Cathi, accountability does help.
It does.
And honestly, you couldn't find a less judgmental, accountable person than me, because you're always going to do better than me, no matter what.
No, that's not. It's not a race. But we've always talked about this, and I just we have never really kind of thought of a system to create it. But it is interesting. It is an interesting concept.
Yeah.
So,
well, I mean, I was even thinking, when you said at the end of the week you go over and score things, and I'm thinking that's where I'll fail. I might be able to do all the stuff, and then when it comes to the end of the week, I'm going to be like, oh wait, I forgot to go back, and do I really want to do that and stuff? And that's where I would need somebody to be like, I'm doing my scoring. Are you doing yours? Well,
it's interesting because I think the reason we would be hesitant to score or measure what our week was, because you think, I'm going to feel like crap when I didn't get 21 out of 21. But really, if you think about the fact that maybe one of your goals was to walk for 45 minutes a day, 7 days a week. well, let's say you did it for 6 out of 7. Like you're supposed to feel good about it, right? And then grow from that and be like, all right, next week I want to get 7 out of 7 for walking or whatever. It's an interesting concept. I had never done the measuring until this last 12-week period. It was daunting because
Well, do you think you need to readjust? I mean, I think the idea of the measuring is not necessarily like, okay, you're bad, bust your butt harder, but maybe readjust and say, look, I was working hard and I didn't get these things done. So maybe I'm giving myself too high of expectations in this department, you know?
I think that's great because you do have to sometimes readjust, you know, like realistically, I can't do this, right? So
because we always go into things all like gung-ho, and that's really what they say not to do. Like, okay, I'm going to start an exercise program and I'm going to do 10 miles every day this week, you know, and then at the end of the week you're dying and you're like going, I can't do that. And you stop completely. So I think you have to readjust and really.
And that's one of the values of measuring too, is that you're like, okay, and you know, because one of the things I'm terrible about, my husband and I talk about this all the time, is I overestimate what I can get done in a day and I underestimate how long it takes. And part of that's because I'm an impatient person, and the other part is because I'm probably crazy. I don't know, but but measuring would force you to identify that, right? Like, okay, look, you haven't,
because
haven't
honestly, I think I think it's your estimations that are off, because you also do get things done very quickly as to an average person, but then you put yourself even higher than that every time, and so then that makes it hard.
That is one of the benefits of measuring too, is that you do really get to see what you are doing, and so it really forces you to look at what you're not versus what you are getting accomplished. And I think that's, you know, so the measuring
you know, maybe that one thing that you're thinking that you have to do that much, you might decide at the end of the week and you haven't reached that goal, but you know, yes, I have to do this, or no, I want to be a happy person, and this was making me crazy to try to reach this, so I'm going to readjust it and say, look, I don't have to do, you know what I mean? You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah, I do. But the other thing I like is that 12-week concept is, for one, it's really magical, because it's actually, you take a 13-week, and there's four 13-week periods in the year, so it's just perfect. Because you do the 12-week, and then you take the 13th week to kind of assess and plan for the next one.
Oh, okay.
And I just love how that works out. But it is a smaller chunk, right? It's 3 months, and it's like, okay, what am I going to do the next 3 months instead of the next 12 months? Because 12 months is just a long period of time.
I know.
And so I like that. I like the 12-week.
I think it's really important, though. I think the weekly assessment is really, really important, because it can either let you know where you've fallen away from your thing and motivate you to be refocused. Because I'm thinking like in writing or something, you know, things happen.
Yeah,
and it doesn't mean that you have to be bad to yourself, but at the same time, then you don't give yourself the leeway to just say, okay, well, I missed that week, so forget it.
Yeah. No, yes.
Or now it's a whole month.
Right, but isn't that the hard part, right? You make plans, and then you fall off track, and you go, oh, forget it, like, screw it. Yeah. And so what I think the scoring thing is good about pulled me back on track more quickly. I don't know.
I think I might try some of this stuff. This is my New Year's goal then.
I have the 12. It's a book that they initially had written, and because I am very keen on this thing, I did take a class on it, and it was interesting. It's actually, there's like 2 weeks left, and it was a real deep dive into execution and the methods of execution, and it was really interesting. I learned a lot, and I had read that book like twice, and so I do love taking classes on things like that.
Oh, good. I know. I like taking
like,
the classes, but then actually executing is a different story. Like this is like a master class right now, Cathi, you're giving me, and we'll see. We'll reassess.
Well, this
Thank
has been fun. You know, this is one of my favorite conversations, and I love talking about it with you.
Yes, thanks. Yep,
So,
and I'm sure everybody else loves it too. Oh, I'm serious.
Well, I hope so.
Yeah.
Happy New Year.
Cheers. Happy New Year.
Cheers.